This video is an explanation of the reading comp passage, the Trophic Contamination Hypothesis. This could be watched in conjunction with any question about the passage. Of course, each individual question will be explained in its own video explanation. And I will say, if you're doing several questions on this passage, probably a good idea not to watch this video until you're done doing all the questions. That way, you have your own interpretation of the passage when you go through the questions. So let's take a look at this passage. The Trophic Contamination Hypothesis posits that shorebirds accumulate industrial and urban pollution at stopover sites, toxins that are subsequently released in sudden high doses as fat is burned during migratory flights, disrupting the bird's ability to make migratory decisions. Interesting. So that's one interesting thing implied by that sentence, is that apparently the toxins that they pick up, and it's a little unclear how they're picking up these toxins, but the toxins that they pick up are stored in the fat, and then they're released when the fat is burned during migratory flight. For example, large contaminant doses might hamper refueling by altering the satiation signal in shorebirds so that they do not accumulate sufficient fat for migration. A recent study found that out of the shorebirds that were unable to migrate, some weighed as much as 20% less than the average migrating bird of their species. Interesting. So they weigh less. And so it may be that the contaminants are altering their satiation signal, the signal that tells them when they're hungry, when they're satisfied. And if they're getting to that satisfied signal too quickly, it means they won't eat enough. They'll eat just a little bit. Their body will produce the signal of, you're satisfied, you've eaten enough, they'll stop eating. And in fact, they haven't eaten enough. And that's why they have lower weight. Very interesting. Whether such findings are the result of shorebirds suffering from trophic contamination, or whether such birds simply cut their migration short by landing in a foreign ecosystem, and again, it's unclear why they would weigh less, but landing in a foreign ecosystem, this is unlikely to be resolved until further studies are conducted. So the first paragraph here paints the situation, but it opens this question, and we need more research to determine whether these sightings, the birds that we find in foreign shores that are weighing less, is this actually a result of trophic contamination, or is something else going on here? So there's an open question in the first paragraph. Second paragraph tells us, one promising line of research involves organochlorines, toxins deposited on the mudflats in the 70s and 80s, now buried by sediments, but finally close enough to the surface to be of issue to foraging seabirds. Organochlorines should be more accessible to long-billed seabirds that probe deeply for prey than to short-billed seabirds that forage at or near the surface. Very interesting. So the long-billed birds, they forage deeper. They can dig their long beaks deep into the soil. They would be making contact with the organochlorines, or be more likely to make contact with it. Whereas the short-billed birds, they don't go as far down in the sand, so they're not reaching all the way down to the organochlorides. And so we have a reason why it would be affecting the long-billed birds more than the short-billed birds. And then we end with a prediction. We predict that an increased number of long-billed shorebirds will either be unable to migrate or will be found along an aberrant flight path. And so we're making predictions about the effect of the organochlorine on their ability to navigate. So the second paragraph makes a prediction based on the context in the first paragraph.